the only place for everything Vikings. 6, 1, 2, Vikings.
Welcome back to a Victory Tuesday edition of 612 Vikings. I'm your host, Dustin, alongside Drew, as always. Drew, we had now about almost 24 hours to kind of soak this win in for the Vikings, 1-0 on the season. You know, how are we feeling after J.J. McCarthy's first win? We'll kind of get into how the whole game went, what we like, what we didn't like, stuff like that. So maybe freezing cold takes too later in the episode. But yeah, Drew, how are we feeling after last night's win?
Yeah, it's tough because it's one of those things. If you're looking at things objectively, I think the Bears are getting closer. I think they're getting a little bit better. So I don't know if they're going to be the doormats anymore. They'll still be in the basement. I think after this year, and I think this game kind of proved that. But objectively, I do think that they're getting better. They're just taking those steps. I think I said it earlier with somebody I knew. It reminds me a lot of like early 2022 Detroit. It's like they've got like a good foundation. They have like a roster. It's like, okay, it's a solid roster. They just don't know how to win. And I think it's going to be a thing that just takes time. And, everyone wanted to write off the Vikings. It's like, well, it's the first-year quarterback. He's never played before. And I always say coaching matters. Coaching matters. And I said that, and I stood on that. We stood on that all offseason of why they're going to win week one. Coaching matters. When you go back and you look at this game, we'll kind of break it down a little bit. I'm going to start doing it now. You look back on a fourth and three opportunity. The Bears choose not to kick a field goal. They turn the ball over on downs. It's a mistake the Packers made week 17 last year. Chose not to kick the ball, ends up biting in the butt. Now we're back here again. And, I think the big thing on the Bears' end is this Darnell Wright hold on Jalen Redmond. Probably wasn't a hold, but it got called. But, you move from a 30 to a 40-yard field goal. Not the end of the world. Still makeable. But what really sets them back is they had that intentional grounding call where Caleb Williams was like trying to flop like Mahomes. Like, I don't know if you remember the whole Super Bowl against Tampa where he's like throwing the ball. And he's like in
Superman
the air,
style.
Yeah, he's like throwing it like flopping like that. I don't know what the heck he was doing, but he was just trying to get rid of the ball, which I respect. But he gets called intentional grounding, which it's no longer a like 4-yard penalty. That's a 10-yard penalty. You're better off just holding on to the ball, taking the sack, and kicking the 46, 45-yard field goal. Now it becomes a 50-yard field goal, and now you miss it. So, after that field goal, that's just when like the tide started to change, and Jordan Mason had the big rip, and that's just when the wheels started to fall off, and it's just, and then the penalties for the Bears. I don't know what the penalty exact penalties were, but I think they had like 11 or 12 penalties for like 130, 140 yards worth of penalties. And if there are any Bears fans out there watching this, it's one of those things where, you look at maybe a couple DPIs, that's going to happen. But a lot of it's pre-snap penalties. That goes on to the coaching staff. So kind of bringing it back earlier is coaching matters and getting them ready for a game like this. There wasn't a whole lot of penalties for the Vikings and not a lot of pre-snap penalties on the road. Say what you want about Soldier Field, but like they didn't have those pre-snap penalties to really shoot themselves in the foot, lose drive opportunities. I mean, they're going to have some regardless because that's just football, but it wasn't compared to what the Bears had. And then ultimately that's what ended up being the deciding factor in this game. And I think just flat out complacency too. So, but that's just kind of like my take and my view on what I saw with the game. And but yeah, I'll turn it over to you and what you think.
Well, I thought it was kind of interesting. I kind of tweeted this out too, that, with the whole three and a half quarters of bad play by, just the whole team in general. The defense kind of started off sloppy. The offense obviously wasn't what we wanted it to be. Now, did we expect, like a drive down the field, touchdown, first drive? No, we didn't. We kind of expected, take it easy on McCarthy, kind of ease into things, but not this aggressively or not this cautiously for this offense. So, but what I did tweet out was, McCarthy through this whole thing, you could pick out any point through the game that, and take away the scoreboard, everything, down distance, everything. You look at McCarthy at any point in time, you couldn't tell that he was down by 4, down by 10, up by 10, about to win the game. You couldn't really tell, on the field what he was going through because he was cool, calm, and collected. And that's what you really want to see from a quarterback. And we really haven't seen that the past, honestly, past 10, 20 years. Maybe the last one was Brett Favre because he was a pro's pro and just kind of was that veteran. So, outside of that, that's what you want to see out of J.J. McCarthy. There's going to be growing pains, but you've seen a lot of good progression just in one night through J.J. McCarthy in that offense. And it's really cool to see J.J. get fired up at the end, Kevin O'Connell get fired up, his teammates. A lot of people have been saying this, but, the beginning of that game, teammates kind of, put their head sideways, kind of, okay, what is this guy doing? Is he actually ready? And then by the time that game ends, everybody has a different opinion on J.J. McCarthy by the end of that game. So, I don't know. It's just really cool showing by J.J. McCarthy. I kind of had back in my head, what if the Vikings come back and win this game? Kind of unlikely right now. I would like to see the probability throughout this whole game of where the Vikings were to win this game. And, I was probably down when the Vikings were at like a 20% chance to win this game. And it's really cool. I said, get that first touchdown and just kind of build upon that. I don't want 3. I want a touchdown. And you just build on that. Get points. And, yeah, it's just really cool to see J.J. McCarthy kind of climb the mountain and finally get to the top of that mountain and kind of get the taste of success there.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that like the ESPN like odds thing for you and seeing kind of where they're at. So
I'm
it's
interested.
looking like around like the fourth quarter kind of. Okay, so like,
what was the lowest point for the Vikings?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to find. So the Bears' lowest point where they had like the highest odds to win was 94.2 in the third quarter, minute 34 to go. DeAndre Swift had a 5-yard gain that brought the game. Okay, so this would have been right before I think that holding penalty, and DeAndre Swift had that first down to bring it inside the 30. And then after that, I think that's when the holding call, like that intentional grounding call or whatever it was, that brought him back.
And this was after the pick six?
This is after the pick six, yeah. Okay, so the lowest point would have been that 94% range, like 94.2. So the Vikings had like a 5% chance of winning according to the ESPN. But then like, after that, that's just when like the odds for the Vikings just slowly just increased, and then it really took a huge shot up, I would say. After Caleb Williams got that minus 8-yard sack where he's had his foot out of bounds, that went from 25 to 31.9. Then it kind of stayed stagnant for a little bit, but then so then basically when the Jones touchdown happened, that's when it just turned on its head, where
kind of skyrocketed.
So it went from 37 and shot up to like 63. So it just totally flipped. And then after that, it was just a nice steep incline for a Vikings win after that. So and there was a little bit of a divot after like they got that little, garbage time touchdown or whatever, and they had a punt, but it wasn't anything where it was like, okay, I have to worry about this. No one's really worrying about a Hail Mary from your own 20. So I think after that, like I said, that JJ touchdown, which we can go over later, and that's what we need. Like I think that's what really separates from what we've kind of seen in the past, from being like that, either like a team that's kind of hovering over 500 or being like that 11-win-ish team at best. I think it's just one of those things where, to put the game away drive, and that's what happened with this game. And, granted, it's only the first week. Last year, this time we thought the Saints were going to be this juggernaut offense, so things can obviously change. But, if things stay put in, you're able to prove that you can put games away by going up 10, which we, as the 98 Viking fans, know all too well. And that could be something that can be a game changer going into the postseason, and potentially, like, that's what Super Bowl teams do. They put the game away when they need to, put it up by 2 possessions late, and then just ride to the finish line, just coast to the finish line. So we'll kind of wait and see. We'll kind of break it down with going kind of finish off with next week. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting with like tracking the win probability chart there on ESPN.
Yeah, to kind of round out, talking about the offense, we'll get to defense and then special teams too, which was, to foreshadow, really pleasantly surprising. But to finish off on offense, the run game, I think you got to start Jordan Mason a little more. I'm a big Aaron Jones guy, but I think Jordan Mason has to get a bulk of those carries. I think moving on forward. Does that mean Aaron Jones is not reliable? No, not really, because you got to get him a little more acclimated. Early on too. I mean, Soldier Field, tough place to play just in general. Just because of the field surface. I feel like he didn't get a super solid chance to really get going, but that's all right when you have a really good running back in Jordan Mason right behind you in that depth chart. So, I don't know. I kind of like our run game. I really like it. We had a couple good runs last night with Jordan Mason. The great touchdown that Aaron Jones had, that was pretty impressive by A. McCarthy and Aaron Jones. So that kind of put us over the top there. So what did you kind of think of the run game?
It's definitely a tale of two halves.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Like I said, it's week one. Maybe my take on it is like I don't want to give like a full like this is what you need to do situation, because I think going into week one the Bears knew they were going to try to ease McCarthy into this thing, and they're just stacking the box, loading the box, which again they're just stopping the run nonstop because they knew they were going to run the ball. So I think that's kind of why I want to be a little bit kind of more of a wait and see a little bit. Maybe by maybe after this Atlanta game, maybe after Cincinnati, we kind of circle back to it and just kind of see what I think, like I said, just kind of give it a few games. I think with Mason, I think he's a better pure runner. Maybe you use him more on like those first down carries, because he did average 5 yards a carry with San Francisco. So if you can average 5 yards a carry to open a drive like that, I think that can definitely be a game changer. But then maybe on those maybe second and short, third down scenarios where you might want to pass the ball, maybe you kind of lean more towards Aaron Jones and use that pass catching ability out there in the backfield, which was really big, which actually ended up being the go ahead touchdown late in that game. So I think that's kind of where I would lean. Is just kind of, I think they just complement each other really well. I just feel like Jordan Mason's a really good pure runner, really struggles with like the passing game, but then Aaron Jones can really be a good screen guy. So we'll see how things kind of work out in these next few weeks, I would say.
Yeah, I think Jones will probably have a better showing at home, in a controlled environment, stuff like that. So, that's Sunday Night Football, week 2. But before we get ahead of ourselves here, defense really showed out too in that second half. That was definitely a tale of two halves. Where the first half of that game, it's like, okay, this ain't the defense everybody hyped it up to be. What is going on? Our corners are getting cooked left and right. Linebackers, Blake Cashman kind of goes out kind of later in the game. But, I don't know, we just couldn't tackle, couldn't get home to the quarterback. Now, Caleb Williams isn't the easiest quarterback to sack, but you expect, a couple, maybe a sack or two just in the pocket there. But, Javon Hargrave, our only sacks of the game pretty much. So, I don't know. Like, I think tackling definitely has to be improved a little bit. Getting home to the quarterback, I think this next week, Michael Penix will probably be a little easier to sack. They don't have as great of an offensive line as the Bears do, but I don't know. That's kind of like my quick thoughts on that. I think we might need some corner help in the next week or two, especially with the Okuda concussion. I don't know if he'll play or not Sunday night, but linebacker help. We might need to look at a spot there too. Eric Wilson filled in phenomenal, had the block punt and everything. So, I don't know. What's your thoughts on the defense from Monday night?
I think it's one of those things where you just kind of survive in advance with the mobile quarterbacks, and just kind of judging off the schedule between now and the bye week. You got Michael Penix, who's not a mobile. I mean, he can maneuver the pocket, and make things a little work, but he's not like a threat where he's just going to tuck it and run the ball and get like 15, 20 yards on the ground. I know he had some plays against Tampa Bay, but he's not a true rushing threat. He's a pocket passer I would say a pure pocket passer. So I think when it comes to like next week, I think they'll get home a lot more. I think when you look at Joe Burrow, they'll get home a lot more. Even like against the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers is not the mobile threat he was 10, 15 years ago. He wants to win in the pocket more. He'll still scamper a little bit, but he'll pocket first, scamper second. And then you go to Joe Flacco. He's kind of like that age where he is just going to be a pure pocket passer. He's only 40. He's 40 years old. So when you're in London, so that should be another easy win. You would think, but you don't want to overlook your opponents, and I get that. But you really look at between now and the bye, it's really not a lot of really extremely mobile quarterbacks until you get back off the bye and you play Jalen Hurts. But even looking past that, Herbert a little bit, but you got Jared Goff, Lamar. Obviously, I don't know how well that's going to work out. But like after that, it's really just a lot of. There's not like a whole ton of really true rushing quarterbacks. I think we play outside of like Jaden Daniels, Lamar, and Jalen Hurts. I think we're kind of in the clear there where they just kind of evade pressure. But Herbert's maybe in there in the mix. I mean, if Jordan Love can, I guess, but like there really isn't
the true
like
scrambling guys. Yeah, there's really not much of.
Yeah, I think you get kind of blessed with that. And the two rushing quarterbacks you do play. Like all those three quarterbacks are just named. Like your big three out of the schedule is Daniels, Lamar, and Jalen Hurts. You have them all at home, so I mean that's a huge thing that people kind of overlook. I think.
Yep.
I don't. Grant, we're gonna have a tough schedule, but I think we're kind of blessed that we got a lot of these tougher teams at home. So I think that's going to be really big. And it could be the difference of just a fan alone. It could maybe draw a pre-snap penalty that sets them back 5 yards that ends up forcing a fourth down, that they would have scored on. So, I think just little things like that could be the difference in those kind of games.
Yeah, and then kind of rounding out the defense going to the special teams is I think Miles Price really impressed a lot of people with his kick return. I think if I remember right, it was like 17 yards per return, it was his average. And, from last year, past couple of years at least, we like hardly ever took any punt or kick returns back. And I think with the new rules this year on kickoffs at least, it kind of promotes a little more running the ball out. But as far as punt returns, I think we found our punt returner in Miles Price. What do you think?
I think so, yeah. Like I said, he's going to be cheap, and you got him under contract for a few years. So I think he'll be there for quite a bit. And surprisingly, Ty Chandler did better kick returning. I think a lot of that was because that kick in the back of the end zone where they're trying to, I don't know what they were doing, kicking the ball off with a little over 2 minutes to go. Like I said, coaching matters and that. Like going back to that earlier segment, but he averaged 28 yards a kick return. So you're bringing that out, that's pretty big. If you're picking the ball up at like the 5, you remember the new kickoff rules. Usually they're kind of fielding around the 5-ish yard line. You're really starting at the 33-yard line, and getting a lot more scores. So I mean, Ty Chandler, I think maybe we'll see how the rest of the season goes, but if he keeps that pace up, that's another thing you can really look at too. I think the special teams was honestly, I think that was honestly the biggest winner of the night was between the offense, defense. I think special teams is the huge kudos. I feel like I've been kind of waiting for the Matt Daniels breakout because everyone, the coaches have been hyping this guy up, and it just seems like it's one thing after another, and just special team errors and this and this and this, and it just we're waiting. We're like, well, what's the hype with this guy if they keep having these mental errors, these mental blockages? Well, I think hopefully this is the case where we get a really good special teams unit that can, maybe steal a game or two in the regular season, which could be the difference of a home field for the playoffs and maybe win a couple playoff games from that. So I was really pleased with the special teams, and even like kicking, like Will Reichard coming in 59 yards with 20 seconds left in the fourth quarter.
I was going to say, you can't talk about special teams without Mr. Will Reichard, getting that momentum in the half to end the half there.
Got our Walmart kid himself, back to school ready, hit that 59-yarder. And again, that was a decision maker too. Like, just simple things like that. Like that can be
Eric Wilson's block punt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was huge.
That buys you that short field. I think that. I think the only special teams error you really look at was like that bad punt by Ryan Wright, that one bad punt where he just shanked it. But like after that, he was kicking the ball like 55-ish yards, which is pretty solid.
Love to see it.
Yeah, I've been kind of accustomed to him just like punting at 47, 48 yards, and he's getting those extra 7 yards.
Yep.
maybe
Kind
the
of had
old
to.
strikes back. I don't know.
Yep, exactly.
So,
Before we move on to our like freezing cold takes that we have, we do have some NFC North news that just came out from Adam Schefter. So he's put out a tweet that just said, even in the midst of rehab for his torn ACL, the Packers are rewarding Christian Watson with a 1-year, $13 million contract extension. So Watson is on the pup, but expected later back in the season, he said. So kind of interesting, I guess, for Christian Watson.
yeah. Honestly, this guy is probably great for us. I mean, a 1-year deal for $13 million. I mean,
plays 5 games.
Plays 5 games a year. I mean,
So
I'll say I don't know what the NFC North is, what's in the water with these wide receivers. Like, the Lions fans have been really pounding heavily. I don't know if you remember that meme where the guy's like popping champagne and then he's like 12th on the podium and everyone's like looking at him like, what the hell are you doing? Sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it. Like, he got 1,001 yards because I think he had a couple extra games and Jordan Addison had like that ankle thing last year. And then he gets paid $27 million at the most. So I don't understand that contract either. I don't know what's going on with the NFC North rivals and paying these receivers that are just kind of mid or slightly above average. But Vikings fans are going to love it. For the Vikings, I think you're very, very lucky. You look at this roster. There's not really like one contract you're like, yeah, this is a bad contract. Like, we got to get rid of this contract. We got to dump it. We got to dump this. We got to get rid of this guy. And I think that's just another kudos to Kwesi, just really assessing what a value is that you have for a player and just getting them at that bargain deal, and just like the Van Ginkels, the Cashmans, the Paces, et cetera. So, credit to the front office on that.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about our freezing cold takes that we have. So I'm gonna put up on screen a couple screenshots that we have found through last night's game that did not age very well, and we can talk a little bit about them. So here we go. We got one from Freezing Cold Takes. Chicago fans rejoice. Bears head coach Ben Johnson says that he knows when to call his timeouts. Drew, let's talk about that one.
Yeah, kind of ironic because you had the 2-minute warning botch end up being the disaster that killed him. So,
yep.
I from what it sounds like in the press conference, they were hoping the goal was that Cairo would kick it out of the back of the end zone and save that extra 2 seconds where they couldn't return it. Didn't happen. Ty Chandler catches it like halfway, like 5 yards short of the back of the end zone, and just returns it, kills those 2 seconds, and basically kills any hope the Bears have. So, like I said, I think this is one of these games that came down to special teams, and the Bears didn't show up, ours did. So, pretty simple with that. I just think it's ironic how you go back to one NFC North rival where you had the game. I think they were down a field goal or something like that, and they just I don't know how many points they were down against Detroit, but just clock mismanagement. And welcome to the NFL, Ben Johnson. But that's something that like I said, it's very different from being a coordinator to being a head coach. Managing the clock, leading a team. So I mean, it can win you and lose games. So sometimes it's just kind of funny how I feel like some fans, just playing Madden, I feel like a lot of fans are actually sometimes better at clock management just because of Madden alone, which is kind of funny. So sometimes,
Let's
maybe
get Ben Johnson on Madden here.
Yeah, maybe we should just encourage Ben Johnson to go play some more Madden and just learn how to clock manage a little bit better.
Yeah, he can do that. Well, like another part of this tweet too is like when the Bears, I forgot what quarter it was, but like they went all the way down the field, got to like the 10-yard line, 5-yard line, whatever, and then they called a timeout. I think it was in like the first quarter. They called a timeout, and then all the fans started rejoicing. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, why are you guys so excited about that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's Bears fans are just excited for a quarterback anytime they call a timeout, I guess.
Yeah. All right, next one from NFL Memes. Justin Jefferson by week 6 with J.J. McCarthy as his quarterback. Yeah, maybe the first half of that game, but second half, I think Antonio Brown there, he's going to start walking back and put his stuff back on because he wants to play with J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, I said a little bit too soon on that one. I think even the first half, I think think, well, how many passes did he have in the first half? Like 5 or something like that.
Yeah, some very low.
It was just a lot of 3 and outs. Like I said, they wanted to ease him into it. They wanted to run it. And like I said, I think this is just a very good lesson to some fans that there is a fourth quarter after all. And by the way, the fourth quarter is what gets you paid again. So.
Ooh, yep. Exactly. That's what it is. And then from Michael down at the bottom, J.J. McCarthy being a bad NFL QB was one of the most obvious things I've seen in 15 plus years of watching football. Well, I don't know what you're watching. Are you watching football with your eyes closed? Do you have a blindfold on? Like, there's a lot more worse quarterbacks than J.J. McCarthy was Monday night against the Bears.
Yeah, if I remember when I found this one, I think this guy's an Ohio State fan, so a lot of Ohio State fans were celebrating, saying, yes, JJ's the bus, because, they've just been mollywopped by Michigan for the last, half decade, and JJ McCarthy was the one that really started to change that tide. As soon as they get JJ McCarthy at Michigan, they start winning against Ohio State. So kind of ironic how that kind of works out, where you bring in a guy who sets a culture and sets a precedent for a winning culture, and is a good leader, even as a backup quarterback in that scenario, or a platoon quarterback, mind you. It was kind of funny to see Ohio State fans kind of saying like, "Oh, well, this is what you get when you don't know the playbook," and whatever excuse they come up with, and then kind of leads into our next one, I'll say.
Yeah, the last one from the NFL account. They posted, that's 14 unanswered points to give Minnesota the lead with J.J. McCarthy. I think this was right after he ran it in for the touchdown.
So this would have been right after the Aaron Jones touchdown.
Aaron Jones, okay.
Yeah, because they scored 21 unanswered in the fourth quarter, and that was
a great pass.
Yeah, to put the game away. So that was the smug swagger of J.J. McCarthy game one. Kind of, I don't know why, but like I get like the vibes of like the Aaron Rodgers thing where from a couple years ago when he was telling the Bears fans, "I own you."
I own you.
Yeah, like just the moxie and the swagger. Not to say that he was gonna, we hope we can own the Bears for the next 20 years. That'd be great, but just like that confidence to just walk in a building and just kind of give them a giant middle finger and the crap in their stadium that they just had 5 concerts in, and the reason why Christian Darrisaw couldn't play, sort of thing, and just say, yeah, we're just going to take over and just take our L, or they're going to take their L against the Vikings for the 6th straight season.
Yeah, before we hop off that tweet there by the NFL, I like how in the background, that's Nashawn Wright. Those of you that didn't know, I mean, they said this on the broadcast like a million times, but he was on the Vikings last year and just, did nothing, and he got the pick 6 on J.J. McCarthy. So I know I like that he's in the background and J.J.'s kind of giving the mean mug there. So, the J.J. puts on the war paint, and then it's a whole different story. So I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic. He was also part of the Andrew Booth trade too, so kind of a full circle moment, which is kind of ironic and weird. And but yeah, I just thought that was funny. When I saw it was Nashawn Wright, I'm like, oh boy, they're gonna talk about this. But like I said, good thing is Bears fans can't use the Jalen Johnson being out excuse, because does Jalen Johnson get that as a pick 6? Is it even a game if he's in the game? I mean,
he would have got 2 picks. Oh, I'm sure.
I don't know. I mean, just saying, like, the guy that replaced Jalen Johnson was the reason why you were in the ball game in the first place. So maybe try a little lightly on that one.
Ooh, yeah, that's right. Drew, do we have anything else before we round out this episode? Before we get to, we'll probably have an episode before Sunday Night Football, kind of giving our picks and thoughts, and maybe things will change roster-wise before we get there. Maybe IR or any. I don't know. Not that I expect that, but who knows.
Yeah, I think the only thing is maybe I think keeping an eye on the Blake Cashman thing.
Yeah.
My guess is I think a lot of Viking fans were kind of guessing it's going to be a pulled hamstring, just because of the way he kind of pulled up on the Caleb Williams thing, the Caleb Williams roll out and rush. So I think that'll be one to monitor going forward if he's going to be placed on IR or not. My guess is he probably will, because it's they'd just rather take the month off and then open up a roster spot and see if they can fill somebody in there. And let's also not remember, like, don't forget, like, the Vikings had pretty good linebacking play in the preseason. So maybe this is one of the moments where they kind of step up and you get some special teams reps. Maybe like an Austin Keys or maybe somebody else on the practice squad as well. So, or maybe they sign somebody. But I think this will be a telltale sign for Ivan Pace. I think this is going to be more about Ivan Pace than the practice squad guys, because Ivan Pace is on an expiring contract, and if Ivan Pace wants to get paid, this is the time where you got to step up and show you want big linebacker money and stick around.
Yep.
Prove that you're the linebacker one. Prove that you want to, get that big payday that you're asking for. This will be the moment, and we'll see if he steps up.
Yeah, if Blake Cashman does go on IR, I wouldn't mind bringing in Camus Grugier Hill too. From last year, he played pretty well when Blake Cashman was out, and to have that little depth of linebacker, I think will help. Eric Wilson's been just fine, but now he's gonna have to be a starter for at least a couple games. And then Kobe King's kind of like your backup there. So I don't know who you really trust in that situation outside of Pace and Wilson, but you got to bring somebody in. Maybe it is Grugier Hill. Maybe you bring in an extra corner too. Sign Stephon Gilmore off the couch, just for a couple games, and then if you still need him, you can keep him. But I don't know. I think our cornerback depth is probably the most concerning on our team right now. Maybe linebacker.
I think what I saw, I don't know if this is true on the Real app. It said that Okuda got hurt like the last play of the game. Is it a
concussion?
It is a concussion for sure.
Yeah.
So he's probably
He got carted off.
Okay, yeah, it's usually not a good sign. So
yeah.
Yeah, maybe like I said, they'll probably. Isaiah Rodgers really stepped up big, and I think that's going to be. He'll probably be going one-on-one with Drake London. But we'll probably have Harrison Smith back, so that'll be a big plus in the DB room. So, maybe you look at. You have Kuda out. Who else do we really got on the roster outside of that? You kind of. What's that?
Nudie, McLaughlin.
Yeah, McLaughlin. You're like
you only have 4 corners.
I know. That's what like you're saying. Like you're kind of running thin, and I think you're going to have to go and sign somebody. We'll see how it goes, and maybe there's I think Zemiah Vaughn's still on the practice squad, right? If I believe. So maybe he gets elevated. I think that would probably be something that could happen too. So
we still have Fabian Moreau on the practice squad too.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most likely one. I think it's probably going to be Fabian Moreau. It'll probably be like maybe like a Rodgers and Byron Murphy will probably have to play on the outside. Maybe they throw Jay Ward and Metellus in the slot a little bit and just kind of hope and pray they can survive there for a game. And Atlanta has some, okay slot guys, so we'll see how they kind of match up there. But they're not the biggest names, outside of really Drake London, there's really not a. I don't even know. I think
just
Darnold
really got to stop Bijan. That's all you really got to focus on.
Pretty much. It's stopping Bijan and getting pressure on the quarterback with the weak interior. So I do like that they'll come in, they'll hold the fort down and go off to a 2-0 start, which will definitely get things a little bit more buzzing. If you think it's buzzing now, I think if the start that we have from our schedule predictions holds true, I think things are really going to start getting really interesting, and the national media talking heads point of view. So, I can't think of I don't even know if Patrick Mahomes started 5. I have to do the research on that. If he started 5-0 and he became a first-year starter, so will definitely be something we'll have to look back on. I know Big Ben also had a really good start as a rookie as well. I think they made the AFC Championship game, if I'm not mistaken.
So he started 2018. That was his start, right?
Yeah. So I don't know what he started that year, but I do.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5-0.
They went 5-0. So good company there. Usually if a first year starter started in 5-0, you're doing something right. So we'll. Here's to hope he's the franchise guy, and the only way we'll know for sure is when they play the games.
Exactly. So yeah, yours truly will be at the Viking and Falcon game on Sunday Night Football. I'll kind of get in stadium feel for how everything's going, and kind of keep you guys updated on that too. So it should be a fun game. JJ McCarthy back at home, his official home, not Chicago home. We got actual real home in Minnesota. So yeah, should be a fun one. We will see you guys probably sometime later this week, and we'll probably get a little preview out for Vikings Falcons on Sunday Night Football. So with that said, we'll see you guys then. Skol Vikes.